I just remember the sound of the impact.
Lost the wings, lost the tail.
I was so afraid.
A plane crashed in the Andes Mountains in Argentina more than 50 years ago, killing all 45 people on board. On board were members of a Uruguayan rugby team along with a few of their friends and family. Before they were saved, the survivors had to deal with extremes for 10 weeks, including sub-zero temperatures, 2 avalanches in a row, and almost going hungry. To stay alive, they had to eat the bodies of their dead friends. One of the 16 people who survived the crash of Uruguayan Air Force Flight 571 said, "We are dead men walking, but we are still walking." But how did they survive for 72 days? How did they find a way to save their lives after such a long ordeal? This is their greatest challenge, and in the next few minutes, we will try to understand their struggles. The flight was meant to take the Junior Old Christians Club rugby squad from Montevideo, Uruguay, to Santiago, Chile, on October 12, 1972. They were going to play an exhibition game against the Old Boys Club, an English rugby team in Santiago. The team tried to get to Santiago, but bad weather kept them from making it. The plane had to stop in Mendoza, Argentina for the night. The next day, the plane started the journey again to Santiago, even though there were strong winds. John Nance, an aviation expert and ABC News contributor, says that the Fairchild plane couldn't get to the 26,000 feet it needed to fly straight over the Andes mountain range. Instead, the pilots chose a U-shaped route that let them fly lower through a mountain pass. As soon as air traffic control gave the go-ahead, the pilots started to descend. They didn't know it was too soon, though, and that they were going straight into the Andes. The pilot couldn't get the plane over the ridgeline, so it crashed into a rock. Both wings and the tail broke off when it hit the ground. The body that was still together slid quickly down the mountain until it hit the valley floor. Because of the crash, 12 people died. The rest of the 33 survivors were hurt in different ways. 2 of the survivors who knew how to help people who were hurt, including Canessa, who was studying medicine at the time, rushed to help the hurt. The accident killed Parado's mother and hurt his sister very badly. She died a few days later. Parado broke his own head and was unconscious for 3 days before he woke up. The survivors would have to work hard to satisfy their hunger and thirst until they were finally rescued. But help wasn't on the way. Even though there was snow all around them, they didn't know how to turn it into drinkable water at first. Eventually, the people who were still alive used metal from the wreckage to build an apparatus that used sunlight to melt the snow into the water. But according to mountaineer Ricardo Peña, they didn't have much food. People who lived said that in the first few days, they would share a wine and a small square of chocolate or bread with a small piece of fish in it. On day 10, the plane's tiny radio told them that the search was over. After a lot of thought and because they were desperate, the survivors said the group made the hard choice to eat the bodies of the dead passengers. It was their only way to stay alive. It was like taking communion, they said. The people who were alive shook hands and said, "Use the body of anyone who dies. At least some people could get out of there." The group kept working on their plan for a safe way to get help. But on day 17, they ran into another dangerous problem. The mountain was quickly hit by 2 avalanches, and the plane and everyone inside it were buried in snow. 8 of the first people who were still alive were killed by the collapse. The 19 people who were still alive were stuck in a small spot between the snow and the bulkhead, which was big enough for 4 people. They could only get food from the corpses inside the fuselage of people who died in the storm. The people who were still alive said they were able to dig a path out of the snow and see the light of day after 3 days. The survivors were very driven to keep looking for ways to return to normal life. They found the tail end of the plane, Canessa, Parado, and one of their co-workers, Antonio Tintin Vizintin. They said it had bags with warm clothes, some food, and batteries in them. They thought, well, they could hook that up to the radio, get it to work, and then call for help. In the end, though, they couldn't get the radio to work. The survivors finally came up with a way for Parado, Canessa, and Vizintin to get away. On December 12th, day 61 of their ordeal, the men set out to be saved. They were wearing many layers of clothes and traveling gear, including a sleeping bag that was fixed together from pieces of the plane wreckage. From the valley where the fuselage was lying to the top of the mountain, which they thought would only take 1 day, it took them 3 days. There were white peaks all around them instead of the green plains of Chile, which made Parado sad. Because the hike took longer than planned, Parado told Canessa and Vicentine that Vicentine should go down and let the others know what's going on, leaving Parado and Canessa with Vicentine's food. Even more dangerous was the way down the mountain that Parado and Canessa took. Parado said that his shoes started to break. On the 8th day of their trip, the men got close to a riverbank and saw signs of life, like a rusty soup can and a track made by animals. The trail took them to an important part of their trip. Canessa thought he saw a guy riding a horse down the side of a small mountain. He told Parado right away, and he started running down the hill toward the man right away. Sergio Catalan, a guy on a horse, was interested in Parado, but Canessa said they couldn't hear each other because of the loud noise of the river. He did say, though, that he heard someone in Catalan say mañana, which is Spanish for tomorrow, to let them know when he would be back. Catalan and his 2 boys came back the next day and threw Parado a rock across the stream with some paper and a pencil on it. Parado wrote in a note that would change his life and the lives of anyone else who lived. I come from a plane that crashed in the mountains. I'm from Uruguay. The walk has been going on for 10 days. 14 of my friends were injured at the crash scene. Please help us. We have nothing to eat. Come get us, please. He went to get help as soon as he read Parado's letter. And for the survivors, that was probably the best moment in the 72 days. Catalan rode his horse for 10 hours to get the officials' attention, and soon the military, police, journalists, and other people showed up. Back at the crash site, the people who were still alive heard on their radio that the mission had been successful, and they started getting ready for their own rescue. And Parado said that he led pilots in a helicopter to the spot. The crews got there on December 22nd, day 71. 2 trips over 2 days got the 14 people who were still alive in the belly to safety. Carlos Paez Rodriguez, one of the survivors, said, "I saw the choppers as 2 huge birds carrying freedom. I can't explain how happy I was at that moment." When they were found, the survivors were treated for several illnesses, such as scurvy and not getting enough food. As soon as people heard that the survivors were eating the dead, they talked to the media as a group. There were people who thought it was good and people who thought it was bad, but they had no right to judge them. Soon, the shocking news stories stopped, and many famous people, including the Pope, said they understood how hard it was for them. Their story was turned into several books, including ones by Parado, Canessa, Strauss, and Paez. It was also made into the 1993 movie Alive. The crash also gave rise to the made-up Showtime show, Yellow Jackets. Along with the fame and attention, many of the survivors lived long lives and had children. Parado said, "We believed in each other. This is a rugby story because we fought for each other. My life was saved by rugby, so this is the struggle of 72 days outside the rugby pitch, where players have finally won their lives as the reward for their hard work." Drop a like for them and subscribe to our channel for more thrilling videos like this.